The Limerick boycott was an economic boycott waged against the small Jewish community in Limerick, Ireland, for over 2 years in the first decade of the 20th century. It was accompanied by a number of assaults, stone-throwing and intimidation, which caused many Jews to leave the city. It was instigated in 1904 by a Redemptorist priest, Father John Creagh. According to a report by the Royal Irish Constabulary, 5 Jewish families left Limerick owing directly to the agitation, while another 26 families remain. Background: there were 7 Jews living in Limerick City in 1790. Census returns record 1 Jew in Limerick in 1861. This doubled by 1871 and doubled again by 1881. Increases to 35, 90 and 130 are shown for 1888, 1892, and 1896 respectively. A small number of Lithuanian Jewish tradespeople, fleeing persecution in the homeland, began arriving in Limerick in 1878. They formed an accepted part of the city's retail trade, centered on Colony Street. The community established a synagogue and a cemetery in the 1880s. Easter Sunday of 1884 saw the first of what were to be a series of sporadic violent anti-Semitic attacks and protests. The wife of Leibsiv and his child were injured by stones and her house damaged by an angry crowd, for which the ringleaders were sentenced to hard labor for a month. In 1892, 2 families were beaten. On the 24th of November 1896, a stoning took place. In 1903, a reception was held in Limerick to mark the emigration of Bernard Weinronk to South Africa. The former mayor of Limerick, John Daly, was asked to preside. He proposed a toast on the night to Israel, a nation. Many details about Limerick's Jewish families are recorded in the 1901 census that shows most were peddlers, though a few were described as drapery dealers and grocers. Events: in 1904, Father John Creagh, a Redemptorist, gave a sermon attacking Jews. He repeated many historical myths about Jews, including that of ritual murder, and said that the Jews had come to Limerick to fasten themselves on us like leeches and to draw our blood. Dermot Keogh describes what happened after Creagh delivered his lecture calling for a boycott on the 11th of January 1904. Colony Street, where most Limerick Jews live, was only a few minutes' walk from the Redemptorist church. The hundreds who left the church after the meeting had to pass the top of Colony Street on the way home. Many were fired up by Creagh's incendiary sermon. The Jewish community immediately sensed the menacing mood of the crowd turned mob and remained locked in the homes as the church militants passed by. Jewish shops, however, remained open and their owners felt menace. One old Fenian, a member of the confraternity, single-handedly defended a shop from attack until the police arrived to mount a guard. John Raleigh, a teenager, was arrested and incarcerated in Mountjoy prison for 1 month for throwing a stone at the Jews' Rebbe. Once released, he returned home to a welcoming throng who were protesting that the teenager was innocent and that the sentence imposed was too harsh. While in prison, Raleigh was called a Limerick Jew slayer by a warder, but Raleigh, who claimed he was innocent, was insulted by this and reported the incident to the chief warder. Later, after 32 Jews had left Limerick due to the boycott, Creagh was disowned by his superiors, who said that religious persecution had no place in Ireland. There was a voice of opposition among the local population which was expressed in an anonymous letter to the Redemptorists labeling Creagh a disgrace to the Catholic religion. The economic boycott, sometimes referred as the Limerick pogrom, of the Jewish community lasted over 2 years. Dermot Keogh suggests that the name Limerick pogrom derives from the experience of Lithuanian Jews in the homeland, and was used even though no one was killed or seriously injured in Limerick. Limerick's Protestant community, many of whom were also traders, supported the Jews at the time. But despite this, 5 Jewish families left the city because of the boycott. Some went to Cork, intending to embark on ships from COBH to travel to America. Aftermath. Some of the families that left Limerick due to the boycott were the Ginsbergs, the Jaffe, the Weinronks, and the Goldbergs. The Goldberg family ended up leaving Leeds and settling in Cork. Gerald Goldberg, a son of this migration, became Lord Mayor of Cork in 1977, and the Marcus brothers, David and Lewis, children of the boycott, would become hugely influential in Irish literature and Irish film, respectively. Among the Jaffe family that left Limerick due to the boycott was the grandfather of the journalist and popular historian Simon Sebag Montefiore, but Montefiore's great-great-grandparents remained in Limerick and were living in Catherine Street. In 1911, along with his great-grandparents, who at this time employed 2 local Roman Catholics who were resident at the same address. Marcus Jaffe, who was a dentist, was still practicing in Limerick in 1925. The boycott was condemned by many in Ireland, among them the influential Standish O'Grady in his paper All Ireland Review, depicting Jews and Irish as brothers in a common struggle. The Landleaguer Michael Davitt, in the Freeman's Journal, attacked those who had participated in the riots and visited homes of Jewish victims in Limerick. His friend, Corkman William O'Brien MP, leader of the United Irish League and editor of the Irish People, had a Jewish wife, Sophie Rafalovich. A supporter of the Limerick boycott was Arthur Griffith, who founded the Sinn Féin party the following year. Father Creagh was moved by his superiors initially to Belfast and then to an island in the Pacific. In 1914 he was promoted by the Pope to be Vicar Apostolic of Kimberley, Western Australia, a position he held until 1922. He died in Wellington, New Zealand in 1947. Since 1983, several commentators have questioned the traditional narrative of the event, and especially whether the event's description as a pogrom is appropriate. Historian Dermot Keogh sympathized with the use of the term by the Jews who experienced the event, and respected its use by subsequent writers, but preferred the term boycott. Creagh's anti-Semitic campaign, while virulent, did not result in the end of Limerick's Jewish community. The 1911 census records that not only were 13 of the remaining 26 families still resident in Limerick 6 years later, but that 9 new Jewish families had joined them. The Jewish population numbered 122 persons in 1911 as opposed to 171 in 1901. This number declined to just 30 by 1926.